Suave afternoon, suave afternoon, suave afternoon. This is Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and creator. Hope you guys having a suave day.
Yeah, and with that, let's commence the pay.
Okay, I'm so swavelous, you so swavelous.
Together we can fix the trauma that's befalling us.
Divine social interactions remains marvelous.
Mind-blowing, swavelicious talk, higher consciousness. But think, let not your heart speed trouble, Dr. Brother Suave.
Divine light give you double.
Hey, greetings. This is Dr. Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, divine social therapist, and host of Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. Man, I'm so blessed to see a day I ain't never seen before. Another day to get it right, and another day to tell my friends and family members, those I love and respect, I love you. And listen, it's nothing like being able to just, get another chance to get it right and repent for any wrongdoing or indiscretions or things you do. And I'm just grateful for this beautiful Wednesday, December 6th, man. Can you believe it? The year is almost up. Okay. Okay, we're back. Well, obviously we had some technical difficulties. My apologies for the inconvenience. But again, we're continuing on part two of Father's Rights. We're going to be talking about the Good Dads Act and the law that was just passed this past July 1st, 2023. Man, it's a blessing because a lot of times people have issues with things that they necessarily don't believe, or it doesn't impact them, or they just think that things just happen overnight, but things don't happen. And thank God for some of the people, the champions, Dr. Bernard Jennings, and passing this law when he initiated this back in I think October of 2022. And man, as of past July, man, the law was passed. So fathers have opportunities to have equal rights. It's been far too long, man. Many fathers throughout the country have been um, impacted by this. And so we're just happy that these things are going on, and again, fathers, when I say fathers, fathers are men, or just black specifically, I'm talking about black men, but also all fathers. They're fathers. Men are fathers, they're husbands, they're leaders, and guess what? Black men are dope. So we want to just make sure that we recognize all fathers out there. To me, Father's Day is every day. A lot of times we struggle with the natural, but and even when I think from a biblical perspective, it says, our Father which art in heaven, and a lot of times, people get frustrated. They start thinking carnal minded, and they start looking at men as something that they have a problem with. But at the end of the day, this is my Creator made it this way. And as always, and not to be cynical or disrespectful, I always tell people, you got a problem with it, text God, email him, and maybe you can get some answers. But again, we just want to happy that being able to talk about this. Um, we had things scheduled for our panel as well as our special guests. We don't know exactly what has happened. Hopefully, they'll be able to come on. And we did get some emails saying that some things came up with a couple of our panelists. But guess what? The show must go on. And so I wanted to talk about some recent events that went on recently. And a lot of times, again, over the years, talking about mental health, practicing mental health, being a practitioner, marriage and family therapist, specialized in trauma and relationships. And a lot of times I tell people, when you don't address things, you just say, oh, they just this way. And this is the biggest problem. People are not trained, so they're not going to see what a trained professional see. So a lot of times when people, like I could say friends or family, oh, they take my skill set for granted. But a lot of times we have the ability to see things that you don't see. It's just like in your profession, you have the ability to see things I cannot see. And I think about okay. I don't know what's going on today, but nevertheless, when I was talking about the person who practiced their particular profession, well, their mental health showed up and showed out. And a lot of times, people got to saying it like the novice or the person who's not trained. And so recently, there was a mother who shot her son twice over a SD card. And the unfortunate thing is that the family said they didn't see it coming. And a lot of times people take little behaviors for granted, and no one, sometimes mental health in certain communities are demonized and say, man, I'm not going, nothing wrong with me. But again, anything going unaddressed progressively gets worse. And so, and obviously, a mother who claims that her son and her are best friends to kill their child over SD card. And the story goes that it was misplaced, the SD card in the car, and she asked the child, where was the SD card? And the child said no. The parent shot him. And then she gave her an opportunity. The child said, where is it? The child said no, and she shot him twice. And she's currently charged with first degree murder. But what my point is that sometimes when families, sometimes parents can get overwhelmed because they're doing everything by themselves, not to justify their behavior, but sometimes, raising kids, especially little boys, they have a lot of energy. And again, mental health is sometimes organic or is environmental. And we don't know what this lady was going through, but definitely would have been good that that father. I don't know the whole story, but again, it's important that we address these things. And man, this just was a sad case, and it would have been great if the family would have saw it. And again, this is the same thing when you come to these behaviors when you having parents are trying to keep the child away from the other parent. That to me is mental health because they're not understanding the emotional impact that's having on the child who's being deprived, and they're yearning for the other parent. So a lot of times you say, "Oh, they're just being vindictive," but they could have some serious mental health issues, trauma, and a lot of other things. And then I recognizing the importance of the other parent. And so this is great that Good Dad Act has been passed, and having these fathers have access because they can have the child can talk about some of the things they see in the other parent, and not that they going for see one parent and taking all the information to the other parent, but it's just important that they have access to both parents and they can share. And so that the parent has some concerns about the other parent's behavior, at least they can have that discussion. And also sometimes the other parent may know something very personal that maybe know something about their medical history or their mental health history, and that the parent may be trying to hide those things. So again, those things are vital when it comes to two parents. This is why it's so important that parents have equal access. And also, when I was noticing another story, when I was looking at some emotional abuse by one parent, is forced another parent to pick a parent, which is emotional abuse. A child should never be forced to have a level of favoritism or towards the other parent, a loyalty that is. If it happens, it's because the child makes a decision themselves who they actually like better, but it should not be any manipulation by the parent. And so I'm happy. I wish that we was able to have our guests, but unfortunately, that's unfortunate. But according to some most recent reports published in the U.S. Census in 2020, that was based on some data from 2017 all the way to 2018, that a percentage of a custodial parents, or should I say custodial fathers in the U.S. has increased to 16% in 1994, but to 17.5 in 2014 and 20.1 in 2018. So the guard is changing, and it's great because fathers are fighting for their rights, and more fathers are actively being involved in the child's life. And a lot of things, man. A lot of times, how a lot of fathers are demonized, but when you're specifically dealing with Black fathers, we're the most active in our children's life. But in our particular community, we exploit it to say we don't do this, we don't do that. So a lot of stuff is coming up, this new data, and so really the puppet master has been exposed because we're finding out more and more as we're in the information age. We're learning that a lot of stuff that was said, allegations, these false claims, they just wasn't true. But it was also some new data that came out, has been coming out about a lot of the things that the fathers was fighting for their children, wanted to be involved in children's lives, and all the allegations. Man, this stuff is really, it's been coming out, and it's not a particular attack on, as a lot of times people say, oh, it's a big attack on women. No, that's just not the case. It's the case that this stuff is actually being found out, just like years that people was taught about on Christopher Columbus, and now we found out the truth. And again, when you keep having this arrogant way and thinking that the truth will never come out, and eventually will. So unfortunately, it has happened. And so as we're seeing, as all this stuff is coming out, you're looking at so many fathers who thought their children were theirs, and they didn't went to jail, and finding out DNA says that they're not the child. But look what happened. They didn't pay all this money. They didn't been traumatized by going to jail, being exploited, embarrassed publicly, humiliated. So we need to support these organizations. And I know that you guys out there, even if you went through it, try to support the Good Dad Act. There's information how you can actually get involved. If I can find it, it's right somewhere. Because I know that every Tuesday they have meetings. They have the Good Dad Act. So if you want to get involved, it's the gooddadact.com. You can call them at 786-529-0014. Again, that's the web address is gooddadact.com, and the telephone number is 786-529-0014. And man, listen, it's again, I was anticipating having our guest, but it's a few things I still want to continue to talk about because again, I'm happy that a lot of these things are coming out, and these fathers are getting their rights. Because I'm going to share a little bit about my story. I remember going through not being able to see my child for 14 months. It was devastating, and I was married, and so I was going through a divorce, and my child was kept away from me for 14 months. Man, it was devastating. Allegations and stuff like that. Man, this wasn't true. Because if it was true, I would have been arrested. If it was true, I would have lost my career. If it was true, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to continue to teach. I wouldn't have been able to become a psychotherapist. I wouldn't have been able to mentor. Just so many different things. But I don't think you ladies really understand the consequences. Not only depriving a child from having access to their father because you caught up in your emotions and you retaliate and being vindictive and mean, but you actually destroying the very means for that father to work and make good money. And again, I don't it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this retaliation, and it's generally against men who are socially economically stable. These are men who are driven. These are men who are successful. So you find someone that finds some way to damage their reputation and hurt their pockets because you can't hurt them any other way. So you conspire and lie and then just try to discredit the father publicly and with the child. And it just doesn't make sense. And so hopefully some of the people who initiated um, Dr. Jennings and people who work with them initiate some laws to have some paternity fraud because a lot of men's lives has been impacted. Also, false allegations, false claims. There should be some restitution. And I heard that's in effect right now at this moment. But I hopefully that law is passed because it's too many. And so, as I say, my whole life could have been destroyed. You're talking about keeping a child away from their father, and this is when it's manipulation, emotional abuse that these mothers do. And a lot of times, say, well, why are you blaming mothers? Well, you guys don't want to have a baby. And people say, why are you pointing fingers? Pointing fingers is what you have to do if you're the corporate. And you can't play victim and saying it's against you. No, you're the one doing it. And thousands and hundreds of thousands of fathers throughout this nation has been victims of maternity fraud, has been victims of being incarcerated as a result of lies. DNA shows that they're not the father. You leave the country or leave the state, but you having child support money that's being directly given to you, and you're not concerned about the father's his future and his career and his other obligation if you have other children. So I just got a text saying one of the panelists is on. So what we're gonna do is just bring on that panel. So without further ado, let's bring on Brother Robert Coney onto the show. What's going on, fam? How are you? Can't even hear you.
I'm trying to find a more enlightened place real quick.
I got you.
So give
Yeah,
me a
man.
second. I was
Yeah, it's
driving, so
okay.
I'm a park.
Hey, you look just like when I was doing a show and I was on the side of the road. It was dark as heck.
I know.
Yeah, that was funny because I was like, man, I was in the car. I was somewhere. I had to pull on the side of the road to do the show because I was in between states, and
Uh-huh.
I got behind. So I feel you on that. Yeah, but anyway, as I was saying, it has been hundreds, tens of thousands of men lives been impacted. And it's just unfair. So I'm glad that men are fighting back. Men are getting their rights. I'm glad the courts are doing some things that based on the research, the data, and getting all this evidence-based research to show that these fathers are um, deserve their fathers. And we look at history, our the heir, and we're the fathers, they're our heirs. And we being deprived of teaching, developing them, and giving them our instincts because our corpus callosum, our brain, we see things differently. And you guys a lot of times wondering, talking about, well, I know a lot of men like that. Well, society, I have a bad news for you. You need to learn the difference between a man, a grown boy, and a man, and an adult male. And stop using the term man so loosely because the people you dealing with, these dysfunctional grown boys or adult males, they're not men. They're not the ones who are trying to be there for their children. And somehow you're getting us mixed up. So take accountability, take ownership that you're making some poor decisions because it's too much data to show the men who want to be there for their kids, the men who try to spend time with their kids, the men who set up those life insurance, the men who carry them on their medical insurance, the men who make sure they have their kids with them so they can watch how they act and behave, the men who get their kids haircut, all those things who provide. You guys are not just hurting us, but you're hurting your children and the generation to come. So I'm gonna stop there. How you doing, brother Coney? How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, man. So I know that you're the representative for the state of Georgia. That
Hmm.
is, and so I know that some of the panelists was supposed to been, I guess, telling their story, or telling a little bit about the organization. So if you would, could you tell a listening audience a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in the Good Dads Act, and what are you doing? What are some of your aspirations in terms of trying to change the direction that this country is doing? And also tell a little about some of your stories that how you got involved.
Well, I guess from the beginning, I'm a father of six. I have six kids, four different, and the host has unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you great.
Okay,
I
okay,
mean, really well.
okay, good, good. So, like I was saying, I have six kids, three boys, three girls. Um, four different kids' mom. I pretty much have a good relationship with three of them, with the exception of one, uh, which happened to be the latest one, who I've just happened to have three kids from. So that in itself being an experience where with the other three we've had good relationships. So I've never experienced anything what I'm experiencing now, dealing with the other three because the communication was good. Even though we wasn't together anymore, the communication was always there. Um, I always had a relationship with my kids. So come along with the last one, we had 3 kids together. Um, Toward the middle of the relationship, things kind of went left, and I kind of made a decision that, it'd be better if we co-parent. Because I was never the one to just walk away or to say, all right, I'm gone or something like that. I've always took my responsibilities and handled business as far as I was concerned. But as far as the relationship, it wasn't going into the. So being a man, I figured best thing we could do is co-parent. You know,
Mhm.
and it worked for a short period of time until I decided to move from Miami back to Georgia. And at the time, I actually had my 3 youngest kids between me and my mom. I had the kids. But
Mhm.
me thinking of them and what was best for them, I figured, okay, I'm not just gonna take the kids and go. I'm gonna bring her with me, even though we wasn't together. And she wasn't doing as good. She was going from pillar to post. She didn't have a place to stay like that. She was going from dude to dude and stuff like that. I had the kids, so it really didn't matter. But when it was time for me to leave, I said, you know what? I'm gonna ask her to come along. I'm gonna do everything I can do to help her get her own place. We made an agreement. 6 months, she get a job. I'm gonna help her get a place somewhere in the vicinity so we can co-parent our kids. The kids can go to the set one school and be between both homes. Which I felt
Mhm.
like was the easiest situation. Well, 6 months come, that didn't happen. Okay, it turns into a year. She didn't want to leave. Now she don't want to go. Me, I have a life outside of my home. I have
Mhm.
another relationship. You understand what I'm saying? And I never disrespected my home and brought anyone to my home.
Mhm.
So I did my stuff outside the home. At the same time, me and her had an understanding. This is what the situation. She even had a boyfriend that was still in Miami.
Uh-huh.
So when the time came for her to get a place, she didn't want to get
Mhm.
a place. Things went
Oh
left.
well.
You understand what I'm saying? I end up, yeah, things went left helping my female friend get a place. Okay. I asked her if she wanted me to help her with her. She said no, she was going to stay here. Okay. So I went and helped my friend get a place. So
Uh-huh.
her boyfriend, which happened to be a correction officer down in Miami, put it in
Uh-huh.
her head that the next time you guys get into an argument, call the police and tell him he put his hands on you. So that's exactly what she
Wow.
did. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't move out my house. I was still living there. She called the police, told them I put my hands on her. When I came home that night from work, the police was at my house waiting on me. When I got there, I
Wow.
didn't know what was going. I didn't know what was going on. They didn't want to
Mhm.
hear nothing I had to say. I went to jail.
Yeah.
The next morning, I was served with a restraining order. Went to court. They put me out my house. My house. They put me out
Yeah.
my house. I couldn't have contact with my kids for a year. You understand what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
on top of that, the fact that this was before the pandemic, but the pandemic made it go from a year to 2 years that I don't have contact with my kids. You understand what I'm saying? Because of the arrest and everything.
Mhm.
So long story short, now I went through that process. The pandemic was over. I went to court. They dropped all charges. I was going through this program at the time to help me here in Georgia called Gentle
Mhm.
Giants. Okay, what they
Okay.
do, they help you. You go through a course. It's like a parenting course for fathers. It's all men, and at the end, when you graduate, they help you legitimize your kids in the state because in Georgia you have to legitimize your kids. So I'm
Mhm.
going through that process. So once the restraining order was, they dropped my charges, and she found out I was going through that program. She up and moved back to Florida.
See?
So now
Yeah.
everything I was working on in Georgia,
For to get your children. Real
became
nice.
null and void. It's it's null and void. Now I got to start all over. You understand what I'm saying? So when she went back to Florida, me and Bernard was talking, and he mentioned to me. He said, "Hey, you know what? By the way, I'm working on this legislation to change the laws in Florida." Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So let's do it. So, he put the paperwork through and everything went the way it was supposed to go, and the laws changed. So now she's in Florida and she find out about it. I send her all the information, tell her, listen, we can either do this one or two ways. We can work this out between the both of us. I sent her a parenting plan, being that we both different states. I don't want full custody. I just want what you got. I want to be able to come and spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
On the holidays, I want them to be able to come and spend time with me. Simple stuff. We can work out child
Yeah.
support, however, that's nothing. We can figure that part out. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
This woman would not, she would not talk to me about it. She would not discuss it with me. It's like she avoided every effort I tried to make to handle this thing cordially, to the point where now we're in court dealing with something that we could have dealt with ourselves.
Yeah.
You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Something so simple as time with my kids. You understand what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at with it right now. I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, ages 10, 8, and 5, down in Florida that I since 2019 I've maybe seen twice. All
Yeah.
because of this.
And yeah, and the thing is, when you sit there saying you only seen them twice, but it's another side. They only seen their dad twice.
Exactly.
It's not just you, but
Exactly.
the children are deprived. We're talking about children that you had. You tried to be cordial, and again, I mean, think about some of the things that and think about all the meetings you had, all the Zoom calls. You're hearing the same thing. It's almost like you got a tape recorder and you put stop, rewind, and
Hmm.
another person hold it. They tell the same story because it's
Pretty much.
consistent. And then you'll be accused of being an angry man and bitter.
Hmm.
But we do the things. We're cordial, and I don't know what took the system so long to see this blatant disrespect for family, blatant disrespect for law, blatant disrespect for the father, you know? And people say, oh, you said, no, this is real. And people don't stereotype. Well, guess what? It was a lot of evidence to prove that a lot of this was true. So it's safe to
Hmm.
stereotype in this particular issue, if these laws wouldn't have been passed. So it's safe to say a lot of women
Hmm.
do it. They can say, not me. Well, if it don't apply to you, then just be quiet.
And the thing
But
about it,
we
what I
know
don't
that,
understand, what I don't understand or get is that I'm sure the courts hear these stories just like we hear these stories over and over.
yes.
I'm sure the courts hear this stuff time and time again and still refuse to do anything. And I
Yeah,
don't
but this,
understand.
yeah. And what
We're not
no,
making
but
it
we
up.
understand because of the agenda. The agenda, you're talking about directly connected to the criminal justice system, money,
Hmm.
private prisons, private jailing, also by incorporation, all these things that is generating billions of dollars. You're talking about going to jail, bonding out, that's
Hmm.
money.
All
You're
of that.
talking about
All of that.
being yeah,
All
so
of that.
there's sometimes no incentive. And then you have people who like us fight and fight and fight so we can just get rights. And I remember telling the judge one time, like like Christianity and philosophy come from that. And then
Hmm.
philosophy created our laws. But the crazy thing is they're not following it.
No, they're
You know
not.
how on our dollars, the dollar bill, it is saying God we trust and everything. But our laws are complete
Hmm.
contradictions to that. Because if it was, we wouldn't
It
try to
is.
destroy the family by starting off with cutting the head off the head. Because
Hmm.
the fathers are the head. So why would you try to destroy the family? So obviously if you have an agenda, these are the things that you do. These are the things that you
Hmm.
do. But I'm happy. And again, you said the courts here over and over again. When they look at the men who are fighting, no matter black, white, Asian, Hispanic, these are the men who are striving and want to be there for their fathers. And we're hearing the same stories. Our children are being deprived, and these parents are hurting their children, and they get a million passes where the judge say, if you do this, or you don't show up to court, you do this, is going to be some consequences, but you no avail.
Mm-hmm.
They never get consequences, but the minute you
Right.
leave, go across the state, it's going to put an Amber Alert. They're going to sit there, not going to hear anything you got to say. They're going to incarcerate you. You're going to, even if you had a paper with their signature saying, we on both agreement that the child is leaving the state and having all this stuff, you already arrested and already in jail before they even check your back pocket. And that's when you already arrested and they try to book you. But you got the documentation, and guess what? They're going to let you go out the whole process. They're not going to say, oh, wait, hold on. He does have this paper. And I think I'm so happy that the Good Dad Act has the thing where I think Dr. Jennings was saying it's almost like you got the freedom papers. So when you go on to pick up your kids and the police say, I cannot enforce the law, I've got my freedom paper. Because that's what it seems like, to show that you're legit. And this law that was recently passed in July 2023 is a great initiative. And I appreciate that. And I'm happy. I wish I could have benefited from it almost 30 years ago. But I'm happy.
Well,
I'm going to read this comment by Brother Wally. It says, this situation is not benefiting the children. It only creates generational curses and learned behaviors. Absolutely. And again, this is learned behaviors, not just from the children, but people are learning these behaviors and how to manipulate the system. Because again, the people who are doing it 30 years ago is doing it 30 years later because they learn how to manipulate the system. And again, it's creating generational curses because we have normalized dysfunctional behaviors. You was getting ready to say something, Robert?
I was about to say, when I went to court for my trial, like I said, it took 2 years before I actually got a disposition in this case. And they dismissed all the charges. So I asked the judge, they dismissed lack of evidence, no evidence. I said, Your Honor, there was no evidence when they arrested me. The situation didn't change from then to now. She lied. She clearly lied. You understand what I'm saying? There was no evidence. It was only me and her in the house and the kids. So it was my word against hers. I said, what made her word weigh more than mine? Because the same story I'm giving you guys now, I gave it to the rest of the officers. And they didn't want to hear it then.
Yeah.
There's been no evidence. It's been 2 years. I've been without my kids. Actually, the restraining order was only for 1 year. I went 2 years, an extra year, because it took so long for the case. My bond conditions also prevented me from seeing my kids, having any type of contact with my children. You understand what I'm saying? To the point to where my daughter came down from New York, and my other daughter, who was living with me, wanted to go see the kids. She didn't think I knew where she stayed at, but I did. So they went to go see the kids. I didn't go. They went to go see the kids. Man, this girl, she called the police, and so much. When I got to my house, Marietta police was at my door waiting for me to come home, waiting to arrest me, which they didn't, but waiting to arrest me because she told them I was there. If my daughters wasn't there to vouch for me, I would have went to jail again.
Yeah, but again,
you understand what I'm saying?
They're not giving legal consequences for the false reports. But listen, I'm going to continue that. But I do have to go into.
If they did that, it would stop.
Yeah, but again, we're going to finish this. I just have to go into station identification, and we'll be right back. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. All right. we're back with social therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. We continued on part two of father's rights. Listen with our very special guest, Mr. Robert Coney. Robert, you just left off on when you were saying the police was waiting at your house to arrest you, but they didn't. Go ahead.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, after my daughters went to go see the attempt to go see the kids,
Mm-hmm.
he called the police and told them that I brought the kids over there, which actually my father took the kids over there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, that like it was that serious. She was living in Fulton and I was living in Cobb County. But
Mm.
by the time I got to my house to where I was coming from, the police was at my house waiting to arrest me. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I say, y'all, say, you guys don't play about this because it makes no sense.
Yeah.
And
And
had it not been for my daughters there to vouch for my story, they would have took me to jail. They didn't care what I had to say. Yeah, I
yeah.
wasn't nowhere. I'm
Well,
coming
see,
from work.
this is what I say. And again, when you look at it, and each time these things are broken down, man, like I said earlier, this is serious, some mental health issues.
Yeah,
Like to me, I consider a lot of them a psychopath because they show no remorse for their behaviors, no ownership,
none.
no apologies,
None.
and you traumatizing your kid.
Mm-hmm.
You are
Yeah. That's why.
traumatizing your
That's why.
kid. And why would you do that to a child? You know, when a child is
That,
crying, I want to see daddy. And the
mm-hmm.
courts is not properly, in my opinion, advocating for the best interest of children. But we always say we have to look out for our kids and protect them, but we're not
Mm-hmm.
protecting uh, against those evil parents.
Of
Because
course.
they not only brainwashing them, they not only gaslighting them, they not only, to me, it's almost like when I look at the Stockholm syndrome, and that's why I say puppet masters, because all they're doing
Mm-hmm.
is using these children like puppets and brainwashing them and making them hate everything and every essence of a father. And that,
Exactly.
to me, that's mental health because
Exactly.
and it's very common. So they can sit there
Mm-hmm.
and say the exception. No, these laws don't get passed because of exception. It's because it's consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's why the first thing I'm going to do, once first chance I get to have my time with them
Hmm.
here in Georgia, the first thing I'm doing is going and scheduling counseling sessions, you know, for my
Great
kids.
job.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because and I've said it to her plenty of times. I say because you didn't grow up with your father, because you don't know who your father is. You understand? It's easy for you to deny your kids access to their father. I say, and what
Yeah.
you're doing to them, you're doing more damage than harm. You hurting you. I say you're hurting me, but you're hurting them mentally. I'm
Yeah.
grown. I understand
Exactly.
what you're doing. I understand what's going on. So it's not
Yeah.
affecting my mentals. It hurts my heart, but I'm good up here. You
But
understand
you
what I'm
know,
saying? I say, but as far as they're concerned, you're hurting them physically and you're hurting them mentally. You
yeah.
understand? And that's not right, man. That's not right at
Yeah.
all.
And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, the thing is, this gentleman that's on there, brother Robert Coney, we just found out yesterday we was relative because I just was talking to his father just yesterday, and I asked Dr. Jennings to give me his number because when I saw the name, I'm like, who is this? And you see, when I talked to him, I'm like, and I'm asking, as soon as you said, oh, and I spoke to Willeen today too. And so as
Okay.
soon as I mentioned it, he's like, oh yeah, I said, we ain't got to go no farther. We family. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, a lot of times people don't identify with stuff we understand. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
bragging, but we understand about men and fathers.
Mm-hmm.
We had them, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I mean, and they stand in the paint. You know,
Mm-hmm.
don't call me. They stood in the paint for their families, their children,
Yeah.
and a lot of times people don't identify with that, and so they tend to hate things they don't understand. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is what Brother Wally was talking about, the generational curses, because they
Mm-hmm.
minimize and marginalize the importance of a father. And the crazy thing is, so many these ladies are always going to church and saying our father, but they hate the physical father.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we know, as you hear, how many times Brother Coney mentioned his father being there and this and that. These are just conversations. A lot of times, that's not even a lot of conversations of some grown boys or adult males because they don't understand, they don't identify with, and they don't operate that. But guess what? They get a lot of respect. But for the men who are men,
Mm-hmm.
is again, the man held his children down. He took care, and he sit there and they saying nobody covers him. He was covering for her,
Mm-hmm.
covering her, and he said the black woman least protected, least come on. You didn't have to
Yeah,
do that. You
I
had
didn't
no
have to.
obligation, but you did
No.
it in the best interest of the child. And
Mm-hmm.
since getting custody is always not necessarily automatic to the mother, but it's about the best interest of the
Of the
child.
child.
Well, a lot of statistical data shows that when a child father is active, I ain't even say in the same home, the
Mm-hmm.
self-esteem is improved, increased, less likely to drop out of high school, less likely to get on drugs, and have a promising future. And you see what was just going on about the worst parents when it comes to single parent father, single parent mother. But it seems that you can't talk about statistics and real data that's being pulled up without it being perceived as an attack. It's
Mm-hmm.
not an attack. These are real numbers. And
Real
guess what?
numbers.
It's not by just one particular group. It's across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times we just trying to address these issues, and it's just unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that this has happened, and our children have. And I was so pleased to hear what you say. I'm getting my children therapy, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you, a lot of these children need therapy.
Yep.
To talk about things and express them. And let me tell you, man, I remember doing some training when I was in Miami. And I always have to give respect to Sade Namor, very brilliant lady, a practitioner. And I remember we were just going over a whole bunch of studies. And she was saying that active fathers can tell you almost everything about their child.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It ain't no, I don't know, ask him. And these are numbers, and this is stuff that the studies show. He don't even have to stay in the house. He's active. He's asking questions and not prying to try to get something about what's going on with the mom. We're talking about concentrating on the best interest of that child.
Yep.
And this is facts. It's
And
not
that's
from
what
opinion.
matters. That's what matters. And I think
Yes.
if they really held it to what is in the best interest of the child, we wouldn't have the problems that we have, you know,
Yeah.
with the family dynamic and what's going on. Because, like you said, the numbers doesn't lie. They don't lie. If you put the child with the father, or at least give the father the most access, or the opportunity to make the most decisions, the child is gonna have a better place.
Yeah. Yes, I'm glad you said it. And Brother Wally says when a woman doesn't see a strong black man growing up, the new man many times does not stand a chance with logic and loving his children for her. So a lot of things, it's almost like you ask a lady, tell me about a man and tell me the first man you ever experienced starting off with your father. So they don't even learn about having respect.
Nope.
So it's going to be very difficult when they're dealing with you, because they don't even understand. Again, they're in
Mm-hmm.
church, and to be so spiritual, well, they need to use their spiritual discernment about the order and these things about respecting fathers and separating them boys who are not responsible, moving in, don't have stability, and just want to say he's a man when he's really not.
Mm-mm.
And so this is how you break those generational curses, because
Mm-hmm.
and just pay attention to those details, because you would want that father. It's just like, for example, you see the dudes who've been giving everything to this child, like, hey, I'm gonna go pick the child up, don't worry about nothing, I got it. If you need something, baby mama here. And how generous he is.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like Jennings said, you want to win and put a child support report on. Remember, like Jennings said, you didn't win and put them people on me. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're just getting a check.
That's it.
You're getting a check. And not only you get checks as a human being, sometimes the dudes get weak and they act out, they get in their feelings, and sometimes they say, hey, child just beat a check to me. I'm not going to have anything to do with the check. I just wait till the child get older. And again, that's counterproductive. This is so counterproductive. But it ain't he's doing it because he wanted to. He's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he's not strong enough. He's doing it
Mm-hmm.
because he's frustrated. He's doing what, and we know stress kills, and sometimes that could be very stressful. Thanks, my cousin. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that was Brina. That was Sabrina. We'll talk later. But you understand? And then that's when they feel validated or why they act the way they did. Hey, she was saying hi to you. That's Sabrina.
I said, what's up?
Yeah, Sabrina, you know that's Robert.
Okay.
That's Robert Coney's son. Yeah, but anyway, you understand what I'm saying? How frustrating that could be. So, man, I'm so happy you came on, man. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time. We didn't have everybody showing up, but again, you showed up and showed out, man. I'm happy. I
I
appreciate
do it
you, man.
anytime. I do it
Yeah,
anytime.
I
I
wish we
swear,
could.
me and my partner, man, we it's crazy how like my best friend, we went to school together, grew up together. Our whole adult lives we've been together. You know what I'm saying? And he got married and he's going through the same exact thing. It's
Yeah, but
crazy.
again,
So
this is what I'm saying. Men are not making this stuff up.
yeah,
It's just like
yeah.
it's just like, you remember how we used to say driving while black, and people
Mm-hmm.
who didn't believe us would say, "Why would the police stop you?" They didn't get, because these things are real stories.
Mm-hmm.
But people gotta stop thinking that people BSing them, because this is what our projection and reflected and all that stuff comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So again, listen, hopefully we can do a part 3 and get everybody, so we can go ahead, because everybody has their stories. Everybody has their stories of victory, overcoming, and it's stuff. Like, I've been through it almost 30 years ago, and I'm gonna tell you, no matter how hard it is, again, as I mentioned last night, the Bible says faith of must see moves mountains. But in the book of Suave, it says doubt of a must see counts blessings, and you must have 100% faith and 0 doubt, because 99.9 won't do. So you need to walk on water when it comes to your faith, and believe that you will get your kids back. You will have an active and productive life with them, and they will be successful, and you have a loving relationship with them. And
No doubt.
listen, don't hang
No
up
doubt.
when we go in. So we're going to close out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for showing up. Thank you guys for the support, the comments, the interactions, man. This has been a mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening experience, as we talked about father rights and a Good Dad Act. And just thank God for those people who advocated for that, and the laws got passed. And so just remember, great minds reach great places. I love you. I mean it. Bye-bye.
We're shining bright, and we're shining the light on us like no other. Neighborhood Planet. Our neighborhood, our world. Programs like this are made possible by Neighborhood Planet Broadcasting Systems, Neighborhood Planet Network, iBlister Digital Media Creative, and from contributions to NPN TV from viewers like you. Thank you.